the only podcast designed for the families of those who are struggling with addiction and codependency. If addiction has rocked your household and you don't know where to turn to get support, then this podcast was built for you. Our host has written the book on how families can navigate the scary world of addiction. Chronic Hope, Parenting the Addicted Child, and Chronic Hope, Families and Addiction can both be found on Amazon today. We invite you to connect with us on Facebook, as well as subscribing to the Chronic Hope Institute podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, here is your host, author, therapist, and CEO of the Chronic Hope Institute, Kevin Peterson.
Is that the famous 2020 line? Kevin, are you on mute?
It says guest has muted themselves. Technical difficulties of live. I don't think I can change it. It says guest has muted. So here's the fun of live content. Welcome if you're here. We have Eric today.
Yeah.
I guess, Kev, leave and come back, and we will move forward with this.
You know, when you take an adventure and do a live stream, sometimes you just have to expect the unexpected.
That's true. So
and,
he's popping back on, and we should have.
Yeah, he's gonna hop back on real fast.
You're back.
Am I on?
Go ahead.
All right, Kevin, we got you.
Hey, I have no idea what I did there, but hey, everybody, it's good to have you here. This is Kevin Peterson, the founder of the Chronic Hope Institute. We are the only podcast designed for families that are struggling with addiction and recovery. And Happy New Year to you all. We have a super special treat today. We have my friend Eric Mata joining us from Ohio. He's going to tell us more about it, and he's going to share his journey of recovery with us. And without any further ado, good morning.
It's good morning for you. It's good afternoon for me. I've been up since about 6 o'clock this morning, dealing with screaming kids all day long. So it may be good morning to Kevin, but it's probably good afternoon to the rest of us. But thanks, Kevin. I'm excited to be here. In a long story short, I've been clean since February 23rd, 2010. I got clean when I was 22, 34. I feel like an old man now. I got a wife and 3 kids, and recovery has opened up so many doors in my life that I really could talk about 50 different things, and everything ties back to recovery. Like most other people who struggle with addiction, I started using very young, 14, 15 years old. Back then it was fun. It used to be fun to go to the bowling alley with my friends and drink and smoke weed, and not knowing anything about addiction or the progression of addiction. It starts, one thing leads to another. You know what I'm saying, Kevin? You experienced that? One thing leads.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine in LA always says, weed is not the gateway drug. Beer is the gateway drug. It all starts with beer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you can take a look at how it starts or where it comes from or what the problems are, but you know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, only thing that really matters is what are you going to do about your problem, Yeah. And I think that for your audience of people, it's very obvious the problem is drinking, drugs, pills, dope, heroin, meth, whatever the problem may be. But the real focus, in my opinion, needs to be on the solution.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. I know exactly where you're going with that. And I think for me, what I've always found is a little bit of qualification always makes me feel like the person that's talking, I can understand where they're coming from. Yeah. But I know exactly what you're saying. I was just telling somebody this the other day, actually. They're like, how do I know if I'm in a good meeting? And I said, well, generally the good meetings focus on the solution. They don't focus on the problem. And if you're in a situation, whether it's a meeting for codependency or a meeting for addiction, if you're in a position where all they're doing is talking about the drama, the crisis, the chaos, and what this person is doing, that's not a solution meeting, Yep. And so, but do tell us a little bit about what got you to that jumping off point for you.
That's a good question because, a lot of people, we experience very similar consequences. The family gets mad at us. They kick us out, right? We lose our job. We wreck our car. We blow all of our money. We steal from people we love. And a lot of people would think, well, shouldn't that be enough to help him get clean? Shouldn't that be enough to make him want to change? And, a logical person would say, oh, of course, that should be enough to make him change. But man, I wish I could tell you, I stole from my grandma one time and I decided I'm never going to use again. It definitely wasn't the case for me, and it wasn't the case for a lot of other people I've met. I was, what it took for me to get clean was when I say several, let me be honest, 3 failed attempts at inpatient treatment.
Okay.
I overdosed and almost died. I overdosed on a methadone and Xanax combination. Back then, that was my definition. I didn't just like to take one substance. I wanted a few because I wanted to be all the way gone. That was my goal for the day. So, I didn't spend a lot of time, but I was in and out of juvenile jail, always on probation, always looking at going to court, cases, several different things. But what it took for me in the end is it was funny because my birthday's New Year's Day. So I remember being in jail when I was 17, right around Thanksgiving time. So my motto was, they can't hold me in here forever. I'm to be 18. There ain't nothing they can do to me. And that was my thought process. I was like, I don't really care how long you keep me. You can't hold me past 18. So I ended up getting out of juvenile jail right before Thanksgiving when I turned 17. Didn't stop using, didn't even want to stop using. And then after I turned 18, about a week after I turned 18, I caught another charge as an adult, and I went to the county jail for the first time, where it was, at first I was the biggest dude in the juvenile jail. I was the oldest cat in there. And now it's like, whoa, this isn't, and you just look around, right? I remember being 18, just turned 18, being in jail, looking at all these other cats who were 40, 50, 60 years old, who just look like they've been in there their whole life. And I thought, good God, this is not what I want, but even that right there was enough to get me clean. Like, I got it at 18 and continued to use. And long story short, at the end of my addiction, I was shooting up heroin and meth. I was using anything I could get my hands on. And I ended up catching a felony charge as an adult. And there was real consequences for that. It was either, I thought I was going to go to prison for that. And, Kevin, I remember being in the county jail, like withdrawing, being dope sick. And then, telling myself, like, just feeling relief, like, I was withdrawing, I was dope sick, but I felt relief for the fact that, man, if this is what it takes, like, let's get it rolling. Like, let's do it, But, of course, got out, continued to use again. You know the story.
Well, that is our story. That's the story of addiction, right? Is that the addiction, is always going to be waiting for you. And by the way, if you just joined us, if you're watching us, we have Eric Mata, who's sharing his story of recovery with us. And if you have questions or comments, or, both Eric and I, he hasn't gotten there yet, but both Eric and I are licensed mental health professionals. And if you have questions about addiction, codependency, family, individual, we're happy to sort of throw you some thoughts and ideas on that as well. And I really appreciate you sharing sort of the what it was like portion, right? Is like, this is where it took me. This is what happened. I'm in jail. I'm going to the big boy jail. It's, what I'm hearing is it never got better.
No, it definitely didn't.
Because I remember when I was back then using in that time frame, I was just like, the big one's going to hit tomorrow and everything's going to be great. I'm going to be massive, and everything's going to be fantastic and everything's going to change tomorrow, and I don't know if you ever felt that way, but for me, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Well, the thing for me is, like, back then I didn't want to change, like I felt like my purpose in life was to get high. All my friends got high. I got high with mom, dad, my sisters, my aunts, my grandmother, right? I got high with everybody, so that was my identity. I was a drug addict. I dropped out of high school, never could keep or anything like that. And I literally, and I know this really sounds bad to say, and they say, oh, poor you for feeling like that. I felt like my purpose in life was to get high, you know? So
Yeah.
my actions aligned with that. You know what I'm saying? And that's what, and it's not because I felt like I was wrong or I was some devil child or something like that. That's where I found fun, you know, like
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, I used to like to play sports when I was a kid and stuff like that, but nothing compared to getting high for me. It was just where I found like I fit in best, you know, with that crowd of people. But, you know, very quickly as my addiction progressed, all my addiction progressed as well. So in the beginning, when we were all drinking booze and smoking weed together, it's a whole different ball game from when you and all your friends are shooting dope, stealing from each other, lying and manipulating. I mean, you get to a place where you're like, this just isn't fun anymore. Like I don't enjoy waking up having to find something to steal, to sell, to lie, to cheat, to manipulate so that I can get well. Right. And I know that we could dive down that whole dope sickness, getting well, you know, topic in itself right there. But eventually, Kevin, this is what got me clean. Right. So
Yeah.
I remember I'll never forget. Like, so when I caught the felony charge, I had a year in prison suspended, right? So pretty much the judge gave me I was like, I'm an addict. I need help. You know what I'm saying? Like it was very obvious I was an addict. So the only requirements for my probation was to get a job, get my GED, and to I think I had a year of probation, right? So get a job, get my GED, and pay off my little bit of fines or whatever I had. So, you know, I skated through that entire year of probation. The probation officer never drug tested me. He never checked up on anything. So he was doing his job, right? I guess, because I imagine he probably had 40 or 50 other knuckleheads he was managing on his caseload too. But I remember in the end, right? In the end of my, when my year was about to be up, I always had a different story every month. I'd say, well, I'm about to start this GED class next week, or I got this job interview coming up real soon. So what I was trying to do is justify why don't lock me up right now, because I'm about to start doing, just like you said, tomorrow, I'm going to start doing something really good.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the end of that probation sentence, my probation officer drug tested me, right? And he was this little short old guy. He was like 75 years. He was like, he was an old man, right? He was probably older than that, but he drug tested me, and I tested positive for literally everything he had on his drug test. I mean, I was literally using everything, you know.
Yeah.
Not, you know, today I'm assuming the whoever mixes all these substances together, and then people will take something not knowing they're taking 5 different types of drugs. But back then, like I was literally taking this, that. I mean, literally everything I could get my hands on. So anyway, this little old dude looks at me, he says, Eric, you go back to treatment and you do everything they tell you to do, or you're going to prison. So, you know, and by this point, this was my second time going back to treatment, because I'd went to treatment before that. I knew I needed help. My first time I went to treatment, I think this is a good story for parents right here, right? So,
Okay.
you know, in my situation, like I was using, and so were all of my friends. My dad used to refer to us as me and my knucklehead friends. So that's, for the story, will be me and my knucklehead friends. So I was using with me and all my knucklehead friends. And it's like all of us continued to catch cases around the same time, catch charges. And, you know, so it was like, and we knew the get out of jail free card, or the way to avoid, you know, was to go to treatment. That was the cop out most times, was to go to treatment. So we all knew, like, hey, we can just go to treatment. So my first time in treatment, I went, and it just so happened that about 4 or 5 of my knucklehead friends were all in there at the same time with me. So it was me, 4 or 5 of my friends, and about half a dozen other people that we didn't know, right? And I always used to share, like, in our hearts, in my heart, like I really wanted to get clean, but up here in this rat bastard here, like I did not know how, right?
Yeah.
I had never witnessed anybody get clean and stay clean, right? I didn't think that it was possible because I had never seen it done. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you've never seen something done, if you've never seen anybody overcome an obstacle in their life, why would you have any thought process like it's even possible? You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, absolutely, man. I totally, I can complete. I didn't have the same level of consequences that you did, but I remember that mentality of just like, you know, this is never going to end. You know,
Yeah.
and it just, it's just gonna keep getting worse and worse and worse. And then, you know, but I knew about the 12-step recovery world, and we used to make fun of it, You know, it was a joke. You know, those guys are losers. They're, you know, sitting around smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee in church basements. They have no lives. It's awful. Blah 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 blah. You know, and so we had in our minds, we were like, I mean, I always thought, I mean, I have to tell you, I look back at myself and I'm like, intellectually, I knew something was wrong. I knew that this was not a normal way of life.
Yeah.
But I couldn't figure out my way out. You know,
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. Yeah.
So needless to say, like my first attempt at treatment, I was like, I want to do this. I'm going to try. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to give, you know, my counselor was like, try transitional housing. Don't go back to the same environment you lived with before, because that makes a lot of sense. Why would you go to treatment and then get clean and then get back out and go back to the same place you were using before? Like sounds like a recipe for failure right there. And she was absolutely right. So, you know, I'll share this because I think that a lot of people don't really understand the disease of addiction, or they don't understand what, like when an addict says, I have a trigger, I have a craving, something told me to use. Like a lot of people will say, that's BS. You're lying. You wanted to get high. So, you know, I remember this is when I was getting in touch with the disease and what it really was. So I remember being in treatment for the first time. Right. And, you know, I was on the Suboxone maintenance plan. I was on the wean you off while you're in there. You know, the thought of actually coming off the Suboxone while I was in treatment was 10 times worse than actually doing it. And for anyone who's ever come off Suboxone, you know, that's very hard to do. Thankfully, I was only on it for about 21 days while I was in treatment. This is the first time. This is like actually getting clean. So anyways, I remember waking up and it was like the last, you know, it was the first day that I was in treatment where I was actually supposed to take nothing. You know, I had no more medication. The medication was done. They tapered me off. And I remember we was watching the news that morning when I was in treatment. And here, like I live in Springfield, that's very close to Dayton. And I remember them having it on the news. They showed, you know, like on the news where they show the live shots of like traffic and stuff like that. Like, so in Springfield and Dayton, there's this I-70-75 interchange, right? I guess it's kind of like a big deal because it's where 70 and 75 cross. I remember when I was in treatment, that on TV while I was in treatment, and like just by seeing that, right, just by my eyeballs and my disease, seeing that I-70-75 interchange, because that's the road I used to travel every day when I got high. Right. So I would take that highway. That was part of the process. That was part of the ritual for getting high, was driving to Dayton, copping dope, getting high and driving home. So when I saw that 70-75 interchange, it set something off in my mind. And I was like, I'm getting high today. Right. And I was in treatment. I would weaned off Suboxone. And I mean, I could tell you exact vivid details that whole entire day, but I got high when I was in treatment the first time. And needless to say, got out and continued to use, you know, once again. So anyway, how long we've been talking now, because they're like, well, I thought he was going to talk about what helped him get clean. So here we are, 25 minutes
but
in.
I think it's good to get a cemented foundation, but I totally get what you're saying. And we got a comment from Amy Parker saying, preach. What a great story and message of hope. Amy, is that a friend of yours?
Yep. She is a peer recovery support specialist here in the Springfield, Dayton area too. So what's up, Amy? Good to see you. Glad I figured you could tune in. So thanks for the comment there. But anyway, Kevin, so check this out, right? So after getting out of treatment, so you got to let's take a look at, like, let's say I'm a family member, right? And I'm going to take a look at the facts. Okay. Eric's been to treatment and failed, been to jail, looking at going to prison. He's overdosed. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have any education. He dropped out of high school, right? He has nobody in his life who's a positive influence. Like what chance do I really have? You know what I'm saying? Like, what chance does somebody like that really have? Basically zero, you know? So anyway, I get out of treatment, right? And I was out of treatment from the period of the first time to the second time. There was about 4 or 5 month gap, right? And that was the bitter ends for me. It was a cold, long December 2009 winter. I mean, I remember legit sleeping outside. I remember being so hungry, like literally skin and bones, because I was so hungry. And like, I had family. My family, they loved me, but they're like, dude, we love you, but you can't come here no more. Like, my grandpa was like, leave. You have to go. You know, and like, and I knew if he would have just let me ride it out on the couch, you know what I'm saying, and let grandma keep cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me every day, why would I have had to change? You know what I'm saying? I would have had no consequences. But anyway, a few months later, after that first attempt at treatment, I went back to that same treatment center again, right? It was the same treatment center, the same counselors, the same case managers, the same treatment plan, the same facility. The only thing that was different was I did not go with any of my knucklehead friends that second time around, which I think was very beneficial for me, right? I don't have any scientific data that proves that, hey, if he goes to treatment with people he knows, he's more likely to use, or, I don't have anything to support that. I can just share that's my experience. When I went to treatment that second time, I didn't know anybody. And here's the hit, right? Here's the hit. They still do treatment that second time. They took us to like NA meetings and AA meetings that were outside of the treatment center, which I encourage. That's what kept me clean. So they took us to meetings, and I remember going to one of my first meetings after I got back into treatment again, and I saw a guy, right, that I had went to treatment with 6 months prior to that, and this dude was still clean. I get goosebumps like even sharing that with you, because that was the first time in my life I had ever personally known somebody. And see, here's the thing. Like, I was a heroin addict. This dude was a crackhead. So it's like, back then, I'm comparing, well, I'm not a crackhead. I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I remember telling myself, I'm like, damn it, if this crackhead can stay clean, I have to be able to stay clean. Like, and I'm telling you what, that was the first time in my life I ever had hope that I too could possibly stay clean, by seeing this old dude he was living in transitional housing. You know what I'm saying? He had been clean like 6 months, like he was doing the thing. And I'm telling you what, that was it. That's what it took right there for me to actually finally believe, So from the time I started using at 14 to the time I got clean at 22, I'm talking about 8 years of denial, right? Justification, rationalization, all that stuff that comes with addiction that I didn't even know was addiction, to get me to that place where I was like, wow, maybe I too can stay clean. So.
And I love what you said earlier. Your grandpa said, that's it, we're done. You're out. And then that put you into a place where you sought treatment again. And then, in the process of your treatment, you saw someone that was actually doing it that you could connect with. And I actually had a very similar experience in that when I first got sober in Los Angeles, I was running around doing all this thing. I remember at a Sunday night meeting, seeing a girl that I had gone to college with named Allison coming across the room with this big smile on her face. And I was just, I think I was like 60, 90 days sober, just clinging to the chair, like, oh, please, God, don't let me die, and she walked up to me and gave me a big hug. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. She's like, yeah, I've been sober 5 years. And then I, immediately was like, oh, thank God. Okay. And
see, what happens is, like, and just like I shared with you before, like, I felt like I belonged in the streets. I felt like I belonged using drugs. Like, when I felt like I belonged as a person in recovery, that's when I started to stay clean. When I identified as a recovering addict, when I said, hello, my name's Eric, I'm an addict, I got 30 days clean, and I don't know how to live with or without drugs. Like, the freedom that comes along with that, combined with, right, a fellowship of people who know me, right, who know the thing that I suffer from. That is a huge secret, because you take a look at the facts here. Like, okay, so once I got clean, I went to transitional housing, which I encourage. Woman, dog, cat, chicken, squirrel, bear, whatever you are, if you get out of treatment and you have the option to go to transitional housing, I would highly suggest it, because I think that you need to experience what it's like to do something different, right?
Yep.
You may be able to go back to mommy or daddy's or grandma's house. So, you know what I'm saying? In my case, I live with my sister most of the time. So it's like, I never had my own, a lot of people say, well, I want to get clean so I can get everything back that I thought that I lost. I was like, I was 22. I didn't have anything, right? Nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't trying to get back stuff. So, like, after I got out, I lived in that halfway house, transitional house, and I loved it, Kevin. I'm talking like the guys I was in there with, we kicked it. We went to meetings. We used to like cook dinners together. And I remember telling them, I was like, you're gonna have to throw me out of here. I was like, I ain't never leaving. And that was what I told them. I said, I will never leave. Right. I felt safe there. I felt like I belonged there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the foundation at the same time, don't get it wrong. Like, I completed outpatient treatment. I got a sponsor. I went to Narcotics Anonymous. I went to alcohol. I went to any meeting I get to, but I got a sponsor. I worked the 12 steps. You know what I'm saying? Like I literally worked with the 12 steps with a sponsor.
Yep.
I got a home group. I went to meetings faithfully. I had a service position at my home, did what they suggested that I do. I knew my thinking or my way of doing things was corrupt. So I knew that as long as I didn't do what I thought was a good idea, I was going to win. So
Yeah.
that was,
man, I'm telling you, you're preaching to the choir, and I love it because I mean, my experience was I didn't have the legal consequences. I was 27, but I had, all bridges were burnt. There was nowhere else to go, and I just immersed myself in the culture in Los Angeles of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I was going to a meeting at lunch and a meeting at night because I had nothing else to do. Nobody else was hanging out with Kevin. And like you said, I found my people.
Yep.
And we would go to the meeting, we go to coffee, we go to ice cream, we go to the movies. Somebody was moving, we all had to show up. And I mean, there was constant stuff going on, and it created that community, where I, like you said, I felt like I belonged,
Yep,
and
absolutely.
we got some more folks commenting. We got Bill Duff and Dougie Furlano saying hi and telling us that, they really dig what we're chatting about here, which
Good
is
deal.
fun.
That's my people there.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. I think that's awesome. And one of the things that Amy Parker puts in, she goes, recovery housing should be part of the continuum of care. I agree, Amy. And Amy, I want you to download both of my books for free at chronichopebook.com, because I talk about that. I talk about how the continuum of care is more than just a quickie 28 days in treatment, that the statistics actually show, and especially for the stuff you're talking about, Eric, the heavier drugs, the benzos, the opiates, it takes 18 months to 24 months for the brain to come back.
Yeah.
And so you got to stay in a semi-contained environment with their people that are holding you accountable to keep you rocking.
Let me share this as well too, because I think this is a very good valid point. So back when I got clean in 2010, right? So Kevin, you live in Florida, right?
Yep.
So, and I'm sure the laws I'm sure the stuff is different in every state, but back in 2010 in Ohio, for a single white male with a single male with no kids income, right, to get insurance wasn't happening, right? It was not happening back then. So when I went to treatment, like, I didn't have insurance. My family didn't have 20 G's sitting around to pay for me to go to treatment. So it's still, so like, you got to think about, so the argument was, well, everybody needs transitional housing, which I think would be great. But the real determining factor in that is who's going to pay for it, right? You got someone who's going to pay for it. Now all of a sudden there's transitional housing and every, bells and whistles you need to help to get people stay clean. But back then I didn't have treatment. So I was literally, the mental health and recovery board of Clark, Greene, and Madison counties literally paid for my treatment back in 2010 when I didn't have insurance. I didn't have an income. My family didn't have the ways and means to support me. I mean, they were the ones that paid for the treatment, and I'm sure there was some in conjunction with other grants and stuff like that. And then, so the transitional house that I went to after I got out of treatment, the mental health and recovery board also paid for the first month of me staying there. The rule was get a job, pay rent, or you have to leave. Right. So let's moving forward. So it's like, hooray, he got clean. Congratulations. Like, you don't understand the problems that someone faces once they get clean, right? If you think, oh, if he would just get clean, everything would be magically okay. Because that's going to open up so many other problems. So, for example, I had, like, literally, Kevin, like, when I had, it's funny. So when I first got out of treatment, I remember I would go apply for jobs. And back then in 2010, you filled out paper applications. So I would literally go, and the only thing I could put on an application was my name. Right. And the rest of it was blank. I didn't have any work history. I didn't have a high school diploma. I didn't have any references. I couldn't even remember the address to the halfway house I was staying at. I didn't know there was a phone there. So, like, literally when I was applying for jobs, the only thing I could put on there was my name. Right. Yeah. Here's a funny story. I used to share. People used to laugh at me about it, but it's the freaking truth. Right. So, like, back when I first got clean, I lived in a transitional house, and like literally 3 blocks down the road was a Little Caesars. Right. They may have them they got Little Caesars down in Florida.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So back then there was, the guy that used to stand out in front of flipping the sign around and stuff, like dancing around and stuff. Like, I was like, man, that dude has it made. Look how easy his job is. Like, I want that job. And I'm telling you what, Kevin, Little Caesars wouldn't even hire me. Right. I used to call them every day. I say, hello, my name's Eric. I live right down the street. I'm looking for a job. I'll be there whenever you need me. They say, okay, we'll pull your application. We'll give you a call back. And they never would. Right. And I would call these people all the time. And I'm telling you, nobody would give me a job. Right. And the first job that I actually ended up getting a job, but then I got fired from that job before I even started because they found out I had a felony on my record. So I mean, I'm just talking about challenges on top of challenges right there, you know? And of course I eventually got up and, you know, and here was another good key turning point too, that I think a lot of families don't really consider. Right. And even people in early recovery, they don't consider this either. So I had about 8 or 9 months clean. At this time, I was able to get a third shift job. So I was like, I literally had to ride my bicycle from one side of town all the way to the other side. It took me like 30 minutes to ride my bike to work and back. Third shift, right? I worked at a mustard factory. So all my clothes smelled like mustard. All my shoes smelled like mustard. My bedroom smelled like mustard. Like I was 9 months clean and I hated life because I literally would, you know, I would sleep all day. I would work all night. I was still able to hit meetings because meetings were top priority for me. But I was like, man, this sucks. You know what I'm saying? This sucks making $7 an hour at a mustard factory, working all night long. You know what I'm saying? All I could do basically was pay my rent, buy myself cigarettes. And like, that was it. I didn't have no extra money. You know, $7 doesn't add up to a whole lot. I don't care how many times you multiply it. So I remember I got connected with a group of, like, it was a nonprofit group in Springfield where I lived at, and they connected me with kind of like a coach or a mentor type person. Okay. And I remember this guy, he sat down with me and he looked at me straight in my face and he said, Eric, what are your goals? And I was like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? No one's really ever asked me that before. So it's like, he said, okay, well, let's write out some goals together. And I was like, So I remember thinking about it and I was like, well, I'd love to open a bank account because right now, every time I cash my check, it costs me $4 because I got to go down to the little corner store and cash my check. So 4 times 4, you know, that's $16 a month. Might not sound like a lot to some people, but I'm telling you what, that's a lot of money when you're making $7 an hour. So I was like, I want to open a bank account. And I was like, you know, I want to get health insurance because back then I had shot dope for like 4 or 5 years. I didn't know if I had, you know, like some crazy disease or something. So, you know, I just didn't know. I was like glad to be clean, but in the back of my mind, I was always freaking out like, man, I shot a lot of dope. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it maybe have put in my body or something like that. So I told him, I said, I want to get a bank account. I want to get health insurance and I want to get my GED because I thought that by getting my GED, that would be the ways and means to me getting a better job. So, and I literally sat down with this guy. I wrote out these goals. He said, okay, take your paycheck, take your ID, go to the bank and tell them you want to open a bank account. I was like, that's it? He's like, yeah, that's all you got to do. So I did it, right? Like I shared back then, it wasn't in the cards for a single man, even if you made limited income to get health insurance. So that wasn't really, I couldn't achieve that goal at that time without having a good job. And he told me, he said, okay, you want to get your GED, call this place, talk to this person, schedule your test and pay for the test. I was like, that's it? I was like, I've been running from this GED for 4 or 5 years and all I had to do was call this place, talk to this person, schedule this test and pay $40. He's like, yeah, that's it. From that one conversation right there, I had accomplished 2 out of the 3 of the big goals that I had for myself, you know? So I went and got the bank account. I went and got the GED. And by meeting with that man, like something was internalized in my little monkey mind. I said, okay, if I can just identify what I want, right? And then list out the steps that I have to do to get it, and then find somebody who knows how to do the things that it takes to get it and let them tell me what to do, I can accomplish anything I want. So, you know, kind of fast forward, you know, to where it says story about recovery with Eric Matta from active addiction to successful entrepreneur, right? So it's like, after I got my GED and I got a better job. I made, instead of $7 an hour, I made $9 an hour. I quickly realized $9 an hour isn't going to get it either. So I was like, well, I need like $15 an hour, $12 an hour, something like that. So I was like, I remember probably just like you, I remembered how much my counselors really helped me out. And I said, you know what? I want to become an alcohol and drug counselor. So what did I do? I went back up to my alcohol and drug counselor and said, hey, I want to do what you do. What did you do? And they literally said, I went to college here. I graduated here. I got this licensure, and this is how I got the job. So that's what I did. I enrolled in that college. I got that degree. I got that licensure, and then I got that job. And, it took some years to do that. So like it took me like 6 years to graduate. I got a bachelor's in social work. So right now I'm a licensed social worker, I have a LCDC3, which is in Ohio, it's weird. It's basically it's a bachelor's level chemical dependency license.
Sure.
So I remember, this, and my wife will tell you I have a very dry sense of humor. So if I try to be funny, I apologize.
It's okay, man.
So I remember, right, back when I got my teachers used to tell us, they'd say, all right, guys, when you graduate, you'll be lucky to find a job making $16 an hour. I'm like, I just went to school for 6 years and now I'm going to be lucky to find a job making $16 an hour. I was like, this shit ain't going to work either. No. Man, what do I got to do to make money around here? So, so what did I do? I started studying people who made money, right? I started studying entrepreneurs back, and I still do this. I used to watch a ton of YouTube videos. I'd find a guy on YouTube who's talking about stuff. He builds stuff and sells stuff online. You know what I'm saying? I just would watch these people and I'm like, how do they do this? And, I remember I used to be real obsessed with like motivational speakers, and I would hear like, Eric Thomas would get paid 40, 50 grand to go give a talk somewhere. And I'm like, how does he do this? Like, I like to talk. I'm kind of good at it. Maybe somebody will pay me. So I remember I printed up this little flyer, and I was like, and I was like, I've got experience with addiction and recovery. And I said, I'll be glad to come talk anywhere to anybody about anything, something like that. And I remember passing this flyer out everywhere. And it led to some stuff. Like I didn't get paid thousands of dollars for it, but it led me to experience. Or did it? It depends on how you look at it. So it led me to a lot of experience. So I'm sorry, Kevin, I don't want to get off track there. Am I derailed a little bit?
I think I think you've done a great job talking about what it was like, about what happened. And by the way, I had a very similar thing. I was actually sober for 16 years, but I was freaking miserable, and I hated my job, and I hated what was going on. And I looked at my friends, I had two friends in their 40s like I was, and they'd changed careers and they were happy. And I was like, what did you do? And he's like, I want to be a nurse. So I went back to nursing school. The other guy was a therapist, and they both said, you should be a therapist. So I'm with you entirely that I had to do the exact same thing. I had to go find people that had done it before me and say, what did you do and how did you do this? Let's talk now. Tell me about you now. But, tell me about, the business success is fantastic, and obviously we'll talk about that. I want to hear about the family. You have a wife and children, and how do you go from being a heroin addict in prison or facing prison again to, living the lifestyle you lead today?
So it's funny because I got clean when I was 22 and I'm 34 now. Like from like 22 to 28, 29, like I was in meetings every day. I was sponsoring, working. I was obsessed. Right. So I've got all these stories I'll say, I used to say this, right? So I got all these stories, right? So I got this story about, so it's like, so today, like I'm a husband, I got 3 kids. I got a 5-year-old girl, I got a 3-year-old girl, and a 1-year-old boy. And about 30 minutes before this call, right, I was reading a book. I was taking notes for some presentation I'm about to deliver later today, and it's real quiet. And then here comes my middle daughter, right? Paint all over her hands and just her face. And I'm like, oh my God, where'd that come from? So I'm freaking out. And I go in the bathroom and she's got handprints all over the walls, all over the toilet, all over the, so she's got paint everywhere, right? So that's what it's like. You know what I'm saying? Like you just never know what these kids are going to do. But I am very, very, very blessed, but much more than anything I deserve. My wife is amazing. She's wonderful. I met her when she was 18. She hates when I say this. I think so. I don't know. Maybe not. She was just about to graduate high school. Right. So, and I met her, I was 25, she was 18. And I just remember the first time I saw her, I was like, she is beautiful. I would love to hang out, kick it, eat dinner, whatever. So I was like, we just started talking, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and, so anyway, like I remember, so a lot of people make a big mistake, right? And I'll call it a big mistake because that's what I feel like it is. At least it would have been for me. Yeah. If you feel differently, okay, I agree. So a lot of people make the big mistake is they get clean, they start going to meetings, and they hook up with the first person that lays eyes on them.
Yep.
So
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, and back then in the meetings, they say, don't even get in a relationship for a year. Getting a
Yeah.
relationship's a bad idea. And I was like,
Mhm.
I was an open mind. So I was like, say don't do it. I'll try not to do it. So I made it almost a year. But anyways, I remember like when I first got clean, I had a really bad relationship. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that relationship ended. And I learned a lot from that. I learned what I did not want. Right. I learned, and most importantly, I learned what I wanted. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
And I shit you not, Kevin. I remember I've always been a journal listing, you know what I'm saying, write it out kind of guy. So I remember writing out everything that I wanted in a woman. You know what I'm saying? And I beautiful, smart, funny. I didn't want her to have any kids because I wanted to start a family. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to have
Yep.
my own family. I wanted her to have good relationships with her family. I wanted her to have goals. I wanted her to have dreams. And I said, okay, well, if this is the type of woman that I want, what type of man would she be attracted to? And I was like, oh, that's it right there. Because if you want that kind of girl, but you're not the kind of guy that that type of girl would be attracted to, she ain't looking at you. She ain't talking to you. She over there, she's looking for her man, you know? So I remember, I mean, I was crystal clear. I was so focused. I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew more importantly what I didn't want. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want a bad relationship. I didn't want some girl that all my friends had been with. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want no girl, horrible, bad reputation that she was running from. Like, I didn't want none of that stuff. So I remember when I saw this little cute 18-year-old girl who worked at Taco Bell, I said, there she is. You know what I'm saying? There she is. And like, it just starts one day at a time. You know what I'm saying? And here we are, shoot, you know what I'm saying? 8-9 years later with 3 kids and a life, you know what I'm saying? Married.
Well, and you know, and yeah, and I trust me, I get it. I'm married too. I'm married to a wonderful woman that I adore. We have 3 dogs. You know, similar environment, but not exactly the same. But none of that happens without being sober and staying sober.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely,
without,
100%.
yeah, without that, we never have this conversation about being successful at work, being educated, having a wonderful person in our lives, having a great family environment. You know, none of that happens without the initial thing of, I got to get sober and I got to stay sober. That's got to be number one, you know?
Yep.
And I remember, like, when I got sober in LA, they would talk about the Holy Trinity. You get your job, you get your car, and you get a girlfriend, and then you're gone. You leave I don't need this anymore. And when I saw those guys cycling in and out, you know, and it was one of those 3 things. They'd start making money. I don't need this anymore. They'd fall in love. I don't need this anymore, you know, and then they come back in, you know, just a little bit more broken each time.
Yeah. And, you know, I remember telling myself, I don't want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be that guy who gets clean, finds a new way to live, builds a beautiful life, and then forgets where he comes from. Forgets about all those people, forgets about the fellowship that helped save his life. You know, I always said, I'll never, because here's the thing, like my first sponsor, I watched him do that, right? I watched him get his entire life back together and then stop going to meetings. You know what I'm saying? I remember telling myself, like, I'll never stop doing that. But there's something happened to, you know what I'm saying? Like where I got married and then I had 1 kid and then I had 2 kids and then I had 3 kids. And it was like, you know, at the same time, I'm like building these businesses and like trying to figure out how to make more money and try to live and be happy and stuff like that. And, you know, to be honest, like I put my 12-step meeting attendance on the back burner because for me, recovery had evolved in my life and this sounds horrible to say, but like other opportunities started to pop up. And like, here's the facts. We all got 24 hours in one day. Right. Yep. I chose not to be the guy who went to meetings every single day so that I could become something different, right? Something that I felt like I was destined to be. And here's the facts. I fucking love going to meetings. You know, I'm sorry. I love it. You know what I'm saying? Like I love working steps. I love reading literature. I love being around my predecessors. I love seeing the newcomer. You know what I'm saying? Like I love when the guys in treatment come to the meetings and you know, it's going to be a good meeting. You know, I love that stuff. But at the same time, I have a family, right? I have responsibilities and stuff. So if I go spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours at a meeting, right? That's an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours that I'm spending away from other things in life. So it's the opportunity cost. You do this, you don't have this, you do this, you don't have that. So here's the thing. It's all going to come full circle though. Cause trust me, these kids aren't going to be painting on the walls forever. Sooner or later, they're going to be independent enough to take care of themselves a little bit. And at that time, my ass will be sitting in a meeting every single day because that's what I truly love to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I am not confused about who I am and where I came from and who helped me get to where I'm at.
I was married before, and that came with a 2-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. And before that, I was Mr. Bachelor guy, going to the gym every day, going to meetings every day, rocking and rolling. And when the woman that I married, she was like, hey, look, I got to tell you your lifestyle is going to change if you want to take this any further, and it did. And I locked it down to one or two. I mean, there was one meeting I went to, my home group, and then I found a meeting in Boulder, Colorado that actually had daycare. So I would say, hey, I'll take the kids and da, 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 da. But I get what you're saying. You don't got to be there every single day, every day. I mean, I'm a proponent of never forget where you came from and always stay connected. But sometimes life takes over, and what used to be, like you said, 5, 6, 7 a week turns into 1, or whatever it is. And as long as my position is, I mean, I've been sober over 30 years. My position is, as long as you stay connected, that's what matters. And there are always going to be times when more is asked of you and you have to respond to that. That's the reality of being in a family.
So 30 years in, you've switched careers. Are you happy?
Yeah, I couldn't. Not only am I happy, that first marriage didn't work out. The second marriage is wonderful. And then we had some life circumstances in 2018 where my wife faced colorectal and kidney cancer, and they were pretty brutal. And that forced us to realize, we were living in Denver, Colorado then, and we were like, is this really where we want to live? Is this who we want to be? And we were like, no, it really isn't. So we started shopping around in 2017, actually, for a place to live. And we landed in Jacksonville Beach and just fell in love. So, and then she got cancer. And that even, the funny moment we always talk about is the day she was diagnosed, I was like, I don't take this the wrong way, but we are never going to move to the beach. I feel like we can't catch a break. And her response was, no, this means we're moving now. This means, because if we're going to face this stuff, and she's in recovery also, she's like, if this is the way our life's going to go, we're going to do it on our terms. So once we got done with her treatment, when we bought a condo out here and we moved here. So I love my recovery. I love my career. And I love my marriage. And so, yeah, the answer to your question is, yeah, I am happy. Yeah, I'm absolutely happy. But I know what gets me there and what I got to do to stay there.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
That's a question I always like to ask people who are 10, 20, 30 years ahead of me. Because trust me, I seek out these types of relationships. And one of the questions, are you happy? Where do you find fulfillment? You know what I'm saying? Because for the longest time, I was the guy chasing success, and that's what I said, got to have goals. You got to be working towards your goals. And if you don't, you suck. You know what I'm saying? That was my mentality. So that's and what I've learned is that, like I can have a goal and I can work hard at it and accomplish that goal. But at the end of that goal, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And there's been a lot of things that I've done that at the end of it, I didn't get the result that I thought I was going to get. You know what I'm saying? So it's weird because I always thought if I could just make $15 an hour, $20 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour, $1,000, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I've learned money's not the solution. You know what I'm saying? And it took me 3, 4, 5 years of chasing and getting to realize that ain't it. You know what I'm saying? So, but at the end of the day, like you said, I love the family. I love the crazy kids. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I want to choke them out, but I'm not going to, I promise. They're crazy though. That's life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's kids. That's what kids do. That's, I get it. I completely understand. Well, I think we've gone through everything there is to talk about today.
Good deal.
Talk about what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Do you have any parting thoughts or any parting wisdoms? Or,
man, I always share this, right? So when I got clean, people weren't dying like they are today. You know what I'm saying? So when I share my experience with you of how my grandpa kicked me out, my family loved me from a distance, God forbid that would have been today. And they would have told me to leave one night, and that would have been the last time they ever told me to leave. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And something.
Right.
So it's like, I always share that, you know, things have changed in the last, and things will always change. You know what I'm saying? So I think at the end of the day, I think healthy boundaries are a good thing, but you have to know, you know what I'm saying, that there is sacrifice and risk, and there's always a chance that that last time you talk to somebody could be the last time, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's hope in that, or if there's a smack in the face of reality, but, you know, and I'll share this before we get off here, Kevin. So I was like, you know, I come from a family tree of addiction, mom,
Yep.
dad, sisters, everybody I knew. Right. So when
Mhm.
I got clean, I was in college. I had 2 jobs. I was living the recovery life, but I'm telling you what, there was still a big part of me that was missing because all my family was out there struggling. And I remember one day, my youngest sister, she called me, you know, and she had a similar story of I did, tried to get clean, tried, failed, over and over and over and over. And then one day she called me and she's like, Eric, I'm ready to get clean. She's like, I'm in Springfield and I need help. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna come pick you up. I said, and I went and picked her up. I took her ass to a homeless shelter. I said, look, if you're serious, I said, this is where you're going to stay. You're going to get an assessment. You're going to do treatment. You're going to do everything that they tell you to do. And if not, there's nothing I can do for you. Right. That was my boundary right there. And she was a heroin addict. Right. And she was actively withdrawing. And, you know, I don't say it's the right thing to do, but I chose to purchase medication on the street and do what I felt like I had to do at that time. You know what I'm saying? Because I felt like it was the right thing to do. Do I suggest you do that if you got a loved one who's struggling? Absolutely not. Right. There was something about her level of desperation. And, you know, cause she's one of them homeless. At that time, she was one of those homeless people who was sleeping on the streets, begging for change, God knowing whatever else she was doing to get high every single day. And when she called me and said she was ready for help, thankfully, I knew the resources available. I knew about the homeless shelter. I knew about treatment. I knew how treatment worked. I knew who to call. I knew what the waiting times were like. I knew all that stuff. And I made that decision to get her to medicate. And I kept it at my house and gave her little bits and tiny slivers at a time but I can tell you she's been clean ever since. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's been 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. She's been clean years. She owns her own house. She's got 2 degrees. She's got a good job. You know what I'm saying? She's happy. And I don't see her as much as I'd like to, but she works all the damn time. That's life. You know what I'm saying? That's life. But, and that's why I would say, like, I could have told her no. I could have said, no, I'm not going to help you. You got to do this on your own. And she could have went out and died. You know what I'm saying? That could have happened.
Totally understand what you're saying. I always, like, again, to reference back into my books, I always tell people, you can set boundaries, but you have to have a solution for them as well. You can't just slam the door on their face.
Yep.
You know, you got to say, we're not, this is not acceptable, but we have a solution for you. We're happy to, like you said, if you're in, I'm in, That's the connection. 100% agree with everything you're saying. Yeah.
Another story, just because I'm full of them. So another person who's very close to me, right? Then has just made a decision to try to get so they didn't make their own decision. They hit bottom, right? So there's something about that bottom, and I really feel like if the family members, if the only thing they know is what resources are available when that person hits bottom, so that you can present those resources and say, here you are, my friend. You are at the lowest point in your life. I am extending my invitation to help you, but this is what help looks like, right?
Yeah.
Go to treatment, right?
Yep.
Get sober, go to transitional housing, get a job. And like I said, I own a freaking substance abuse prevention business, right? I have licensures. I've done this for years, but when it's somebody so close to you, I sit back and I say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then I have to reach out to people and say, hey, here's the situation. What should I do? Right. And they say, well, it sounds like you should probably do blank. I say, great idea. That's what I'm going to do. So it's like, even with all this experience, like I still am not the smartest person I know. Right. I'm actually the exact opposite. Not very smart. I make bad decisions most of the time. And most things I try to do fails. But I know that in a situation when it comes to getting my loved one clean or sober, I don't care if I think I'm the boss or the one who knows everything. I still need advice from somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about, and be humble enough to say, hey, what do you think?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do. I totally,
So.
and absolutely, and 100% across the board. I think that attitude in general through life is what makes people, that's what has helped me, is always being able to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help. I don't care how educated I am. I don't care how wealthy I am. I don't care any of that stuff. I need help,
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's the hardest part of my recovery currently, is constantly asking for help, so.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, this has been awesome. Wow.
Yeah,
I feel like we could just go all day, but
look, I definitely could. So get the book a plug there. Free ebook.
yeah. Those are both.
chronicbook.com. Check it out.
Yeah.
I've read half of the blue one. I read enough through, and I said, yep, he knows what he's talking about.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that.
I like the stories that you share. So definitely, there's a great resource that somebody could use to get started, to learn what it takes to actually help somebody get clean and sober.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I wrote it. I grew up I grew up in a house of addiction, and I developed my own addiction and alcoholism, got sober, became a mental health professional. So I really just want to share my experience, strength, and hope with folks, and see where it takes us.
You're doing a great job, my man. Keep it up.
Hey, brother, I appreciate all your help and support.
Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Thanks. Good to see you, pal. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Chronic Hope Institute podcast with your host, Kevin Peterson. Please join us again next time. We exist to provide support, education, and hope for families who are struggling with addiction and codependency. Remember to connect with us on Facebook, as well as subscribe to the Chronic Hope Institute podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. See you